Last listener question. She's got a great name. Comes from Sarah with an H, who asks, after Dobbs and after the Supreme Court doesn't disqualify Trump under the 14th Amendment, so she's taking the pessimistic view on that one, isn't the court running a real risk of completely delegitimizing itself with a majority of Americans? And I just want to, I would say that there is, I think institutions in general are all sort of at an all-time low trust. But with all the Clarence Thomas stuff, there has been more of a question of whether or not people will, I think we cannot delegitimize one of these last institutions, but like, do you think it is getting delegitimized?
Well, I think the problem with the Supreme Court is that it gets delegitimized from all sides.
Yeah.
And it has become perceived to be, and I think unfairly to a large extent, as being completely driven by partisan political calculations. I don't believe that. I don't think judges think that way. I don't even think Supreme Court justices that way. I don't even think Clarence Thomas thinks that way. I think he has a particular judicial philosophy, and I think he adheres to that. And I think it, and I also think that, but I do think that every person who puts on a robe and takes the judicial oath, has certain biases of what they think is important, what they think is a good result. And I think those absolutely do affect outcomes, because sometimes the statute is unclear. Sometimes the provision, the history goes both ways, and you at the same. So you have to try to make sense of the law and try to put something out there that people can follow that does the least harm, and that's sort of the trick about judging. I mean, there are people who are just purely consequentialists who become judges, and basically they look and say, what's the good outcome here? And then they try to work backwards from that. And that's not my kind of judging, because I think that, judges should be confining themselves to, when it comes to applying statutes and constitutional provisions, they should be confining themselves to what is fairly construable from the text. And it's not always clear. There's going to be some leeway. And I think once judges get beyond that too much, on the margins, okay, this result would be a disaster, so let's avoid that if we can. But to conduct everything that way, I think delegitimizes the court. And I think part of the problem, the way we got to where we are today, is, it goes back to Reconstruction. We are paying for the sins. We're paying for like some kind of original price for the original sins of our country. Reconstruction amendments are passed in the 1860s. They are very, very broad. They have very sweeping applications. Whether the Equal Protection Clause basically says that people are equal in the eyes of the law, regardless of their, and they're focused on race there. But it's just sweeping language. And the 14th Amendment, Section 3, also sweeping language. The voting rights, the 15th Amendment, it's all very, very sweeping. It was all very, very revolutionary. And of course, the court cut back on that early on, right? And then you ended up with the Plessy against Ferguson, which is, basically says that the states could make black people second-class citizens or third-class citizens, put them in the back of the bus, send them to separate schools. And so the sins of the failure to really adhere to the meaning, the intent and the meaning and the vision of, what the radical Republicans produced in the late 1860s, I think led to sort of a reversal in the 1950s and 60s, where all of a sudden, the court tried to, correct its mistake, Brown v. Board of Education, and actually give life to the 14th Amendment, give life to equal protection, and what happened there, though, is I think that the legal profession and the judiciary became somewhat intoxicated with their power.
Hey guys, if you want a little extra conversation between me and George Conway, just a little more explaining from him, you want to see the rest of this clip, go to thebulwark.com/free trial and get your free trial subscription to Bulwark Plus. There's a bunch of other cool stuff over there. You could get JVL's Triad, The Secret Podcast with me and JVL, Just Between Us with Mona Charin and Will Salatan. Great stuff. So go check it out. Go to thebulwark.com/free trial and you can hear the rest of this bonus clip between me and George Conway.